We're going to get started just a little bit early. My name is Natalie Delamar. I'm a director in PwC in the Oracle EPM practice. I have about 25 years, I'm dating myself a little bit, 25 years experience in the EPM space. I serve a lot of our industrial products, customers, that includes manufacturing, A&D, also serve some of our financial services clients as well. With me today are two of my favorite clients. Wait a minute, are there any other of my clients in the audience? Sally and Steve, I'm going to let them introduce themselves.
Sure, I'll get started. Hi, my name is Sally Brocious. I work for Eaton Corporation. I am in IT. I'm responsible for corporate applications, which a big piece of that is finance. And we've been on our Oracle EPM journey since about 2018. But recently, within the past few months, we went, the rest of our businesses went live in Oracle Planning. So quite a bit of time, but it's been successful.
Stephen Gherkin, General Dynamics Mission Systems. I've been with GD now for 25 years. I'm on the finance side, unlike Sally here on the IT side. Been the controller, FP&A director, program finance, overheads, rates, held a number of other functions within finance and accounting. We have 2 acquisitions, went live back in 2020, actually on Fusion. From an ERP standpoint, the rest of the company is still on EBS, so evaluating that. From an EPM standpoint, the topic of this session, we went live on EPM in 2021, planning both for direct and indirect, PCBS, ARCs, and other capabilities there. And then a year and a half ago, we deployed IPM and really trying to leverage the predictive analytics there now.
All right. Do you guys see your cool paddles that you have? Can everybody raise their paddles? We have some questions for you. All right. One side is agree and one side is disagree. And the first question we have for you, the three of us, is AI will fundamentally change the way finance and operations team work within the next 3 years. Now, we know finance is typically a laggard, but do we think we're going to catch up with the times and get with the new tech?
Nice.
All right.
Pretty
Most
good.
people say agree. All right. All right. Maybe we're not as antiquated as we thought. Next statement is, I am currently on the Oracle EPM cloud platform. We're trying to see who in the room is already on cloud. Okay, that's about 70 to 80%. I am currently leveraging IPM within the Oracle Cloud EPM platform. Oh, we got some work to do. We got some work to do. All right. So for Sally, for your respective organization, who is still kind of early in their AI journey, what excites you the most about the potential for AI, and where do you see the biggest benefits for your business?
Yeah, so like you said, we are very early in our journey around AI. I would say we're still very much in the crawl phase. But really excited about the opportunities. I think there's many different areas. I mean, talking about the opportunities in analytics, and we are not nearly as far along as Steve is at his company, so I'm also excited to hear what Steve has to say as well. But also, the opportunity with analytics, the opportunity around processes and automation around processes, and just really thinking that it can change the way our workforce works. So I know that there is a lot of hesitation around AI, replacing jobs, but I think where we're excited is really to get to that level 4 finance organization and really allow our teams, utilizing AI to be more productive, to be able to do things that humans just don't have the time to do, just the predictions and the analytics that just would take too much time. So, looking forward to those benefits, and yeah, I just think we have a huge runway, and looking forward to those opportunities.
Steve, you're a little bit further along on that journey. He's actually been a pioneer in a lot of different areas. You want to share a little bit about your journey?
Yeah, on one hand, I like to think we're far ahead, but I think many in the room, and even Sally here, sometimes I feel we're still, quite a ways behind. But I would say early on, the whole AI buzz for me, it was about, what's the tech play here? Just trying to grab as much technology that was out there in industry, either native in the applications or in addition. But what excited me and the journey has been is it's really been a catalyst around decision making, right? And being able to move from insight to action, or from insight to decision at a much quicker pace. And it really has changed the operating cadence within the finance and accounting organizations. I've seen it in supply chain as well, with the ability to leverage AI and the insights, whether it's IPM or some of the dynamic predictions that are out there in EPM. Hopefully you've started playing with that. It came out this summer. I would say though, one key though, because there were a lot of tan, beige, disagree paddles in terms of, are you leveraging IPM? I think, perhaps some of that hesitation, and I'd be remiss to say that, the AI evolution and journey does require a governance and a framework and time. There's a lot of iteration to it. Hasn't necessarily been easy, but it's kind of that proverbial snowball. Once you get it going and you've pushed it downhill, it is really amazing to see the organization just kind of change. And as Sally was pointing out, getting to that higher level decision making much faster.
So Steve, how are you exploring those AI use cases in your planning and forecasting processes?
Yeah, we first made the selection focusing on revenue. It's a number I'm sure everybody in the room is familiar with. It's a number that everybody needs to forecast. It's a number that the C-suite, demands to know on a monthly, quarterly, annual basis. So for us, we targeted revenue first, and we worked with the FP&A director to kind of find out what some of his pains and issues were with the FP&A cycles and processes. And so from there, really just engaging the FP&A director and their team on what their needs were. We just started to iterate through a project to help find, an algorithm, a prediction that allowed the FP&A director to have a revenue prediction basically on a continuous basis. So before the business goes through an entire forecasting cycle, he's already run the predictions within hours of month-end close and already has an update for the month, for the quarter, and for the year of where he thinks revenue is going to be. The business goes through their normal churn, and then they come out pretty much the same. So we're really leveraging it in the FP&A space to be guardrails, and have slowly started to expand now beyond revenue. So revenue is what we focused on in 2024. This year everything was about cash flow forecasting and a lot of the balance sheet items. And then we've also done a POC leveraging IPM for indirect department budgets. So I don't know, we can raise the paddles, agree, disagree, but for us, I've got 500 departments and 40, 50 cost pool centers. So trying to get budgets after that with a team, it's much quicker. It's the proverbial push a button, but it takes a while to get to that button pushing. But it's been exciting, and I think it's an iteration. As you probably heard all week, I guess it's day 2. Feels like a week. It's constantly changing, it's constantly evolving. And so you just kind of have to have a team in place to continuously update the models, evaluate how to make them better, improve them. So I know a lot of people had EPM out there, not many had the IPM agree. So a lot of great things happening by Matt and Mark and his teams around univariant and multivariant predictions. So just get in there and have fun. Think of it as a sandbox and you're on the playground and just start playing around with it, and you'll figure something out.
Now, you're not auto-populating the forecast yet with the predictions. It's just a reference point for the analysts. Is that correct?
It's a reference point for the analysts. That'll be the 2026 goal, is to get them to leverage that and kind of reduce the churn and get some efficiency throughout the organization.
It's a great way to start small and then expand.
Mm-hmm.
Can I ask Steve a question?
Yeah. Go ahead, right ahead, Sally.
No, I'm curious because we're obviously not using predictions, but so we've started with the driver models. And so how much are you guys like using the driver models for a number of the P&L line items? Or are they truly doing a lot of it just like the bottoms up? Or like how will that transition then go from the driver models to the predictions?
Yeah, so when EPM first came out, it used a lot of historical things and ran it through its multiple algorithms to give you a prediction in the insights and the anomalies. And we wanted to do it at the lowest level. So for us, it's a top task, being in the aerospace and defense area or the project level. But it wasn't quite there. But recently, as we've iterated and provided enhancements to the team, we are getting it at every level. So okay. We're running it on material cost or labor cost. So all the cost elements that would build up your revenue forecast. And you have to kind of tune it differently for different P&L items or forecasting order intake. Which is where I think the multivariate will really help, because there'll be some additional data points we need to bring in to help shape that forecast. But the goal is lowest level.
Okay.
And departments, we're doing it, for travel budgets, Vegas budgets, I guess. But we're trying to go to the lowest level, because given the machines doing it, right? I mean, typically I wouldn't have them forecast at the lowest level because that's just too much churn and it's immaterial. But with being able to leverage the technology and AI, you can turn something in seconds and not weeks.
Agreed.
So I have a question for the audience. We take an approach at PwC of crawl, walk, run, right? So typically a lot of our clients will start with these kind of catcher's mitt applications in the cloud, move to driver models, and then add some AI capabilities or predictive capabilities on top. Are you using I'm using driver models today within my Oracle EPM platform. Okay. Agree or disagree? Let's see where everybody is. Okay, so it looks like about 60% are not leveraging driver models within their application. So that's a great place to start and then add on additional capabilities. All right, Sally, question for you. In your experience, what activities are best handled by humans and which can be trusted to AI?
Oh, wow. So really, I see it as like the collaboration between the AI and the human. So there's quite a bit, in terms of data aggregation and data validation and the analytics and identifying the anomalies, and there's so much, and like Steve was saying, like you can do things at a much lower level so much faster utilizing the AI, but then you still need that human component. Like I think anomalies is probably like an easy example so yes, it's gonna identify the anomalies, and yes, you can build in that agentic AI to then take action based off of those anomalies, but there is still going to be that human element of when those are identified is, what action should we take? And then that ultimately in turn is helping to teach the model so that you get the benefit from that. But I still think that there is that, especially, I do have a finance background, so I am in IT, but my entire career up till a year ago was in finance, started in accounting, so the trust but verify. So I also think that helps from an adoption perspective too, is to really understand the results of the AI and where it's coming from. But there is going to be some level of that human oversight that needs to be involved, especially when you're talking finance. Finance needs to be accurate. So I don't think that it's going to be completely replacing the human by any means, but I think it's just really going to exponentially increase the performance, the productivity, just the value that humans are adding to the finance function. And I think Steve was mentioning just around the decision making, like you're now you're getting all this information so much faster, synthesized so much quicker, these insights that you may not have gotten otherwise. And so then, you have the humans that then are taking all that data and making those decisions in a smarter way.
Steve, same question?
Yeah, much the same as Sally. Really, the AI for us is focused on large data sets and combing through those data sets, whether it's to do a prediction on a department forecast or a revenue forecast, or whether it's to address compliance or risk assessment if it's in the SOX or sales tax codes. And then, as Sally said, there's a continuous feedback loop that you have to provide the models as well. So for us, it's about just analyzing large data sets, but there's still going to be strategic judgment. There's still going to be possible ethical trade-offs that have to occur. But it does really require, I think, in some instances, to see that there's a higher order thinking that now needs to happen, right? So you're taking a lot of the transactional, manual, cumbersome processes out of analysts' hands, and now you are asking them to take a higher view, that 30,000-foot view, because they didn't spend hours or days or weeks having to chunk through data and build out Excel files. They can get it, near instantaneous, kind of like Natalie's calculation of how many disagrees in the room. She is an AI right now. So I think there still is I think we've heard the human in the loop. It's taking it on a different approach, but there a lot of strategic judgment, ethical trade-offs, contextual stuff that you might know as a leader or as an analyst that the algorithm isn't going to be aware of.
Question for the audience. Who, agree or disagree, I'm getting pressure from leadership to leverage AI to drive down costs of finance or to do things quicker and faster? 80%, is that right, Steve? Did I get that number right?
Validate.
79.6.
All right, question for you, Steve. What challenges have you faced with AI adoption, and what are your biggest learnings?
Oh, gosh.
Oh, finance folks.
Yes, it's the typical I never lose, I win or I learn. So my learnings have been, in no particular order, I guess, data integrity, right? So if you think about doing a prediction or having a machine learning algorithm or leveraging IPM, you have to have data. You have to make sure your data is clean. That was certainly caused some fits and starts to some of our iterations, was making sure we had a complete data set. So data integrity has been definitely one. The second thing, and this is the big challenge right now, and Sally touched on it, is finance and accounting in particular, they want everything to tick and tie, and they want to know how the forecast or the department budget was built up. So when you have that variance, they can down to the penny explain exactly what was off in the assumption, that forecast, that plan versus actual. So the biggest challenge right now is telling folks they can reduce their churn, they can be more efficient if they leverage the output of the predictions in the various models. But there's a trust factor there. And so I know I've heard it a couple of times here throughout the conference, and definitely looking forward to it. But the learning is, how do you build AI explainability or AI auditability or AI traceability into those models, into those algorithms? Because I feel like once I get whether your team is 10, 100, or 300 or 500 in finance and accounting, until you get that trust factor to believe the outputs, they're not going to stop doing some of their churn and wasted effort in doing something that the model's doing again in seconds or right after close, and then I hear back from them 3 or 4 weeks later on some inputs. So building that trust factor and trying to understand, explain So they get comfortable, so they reduce the churn, and then that's when you'll see kind of, AI to the bottom line and fall out. Because if they don't stop their processes, you're not going to realize that benefit. So that's the big challenge in working through right now.
How about you, Sally? What are some of the challenges you're facing as you're trying to advance your AI capabilities?
Yeah, I think probably similar challenges that I'm sure many of you are facing. Like the first one being people are worried that it's going to replace their job. So there's a component of that. Maybe not as much in the FP&A space, but maybe more on the controllership side of things. So we have that aspect of it. We just really, we finally got a leadership mandate to like our finance SLT that they have to embrace this. They have to commit team members to it. And so between the finance team, the IT team, and our AI team, we've put together this framework of how we're going to operate together to really be able to advance forward from an AI perspective. Now, obviously, you have the CFO who wants the big bets. Like he wants to see the big value, but it's not always going to be big bets. And really to get the buy-in, you're gonna need some of those small wins as well. So we're trying to take it, both paths and not really first focusing on like where the problems are and not trying to solution right away. And so what we've established is these strategy sessions or brainstorming sessions with the different finance functions to be able to identify like what are your pain points, and then we'll bring in experts, whether from the AI team or external partners, to help us then solution the AI piece of it. And that's where we're hoping to be able to identify what are some of those big bets, but also not forgetting about some of those small wins. And another aspect of that to help is really identifying within the different areas like those early adopters or SMEs from like an AI innovation perspective. Mm-hmm. And that being more like the ground up grassroots, like integrating them within the different functions and sharing that information and sharing that knowledge on maybe some of those smaller wins. And the more, we feel like the more adoption we're gonna get there, then hopefully will spread like wildfire. But it's gonna be a balance between those small wins and those big bets.
I mean, one way I like to think of this, so audible here. So agree, disagree, who uses GPS to navigate, where they're going?
Oh, we got two people who like,
okay, so like
or not.
98%. Okay, so who's using AI to trust your prediction? So why trust GPS and not trust the AI prediction? Well, so you're using GPS to get somewhere. Yeah. Have you validated that it's sending you on the right course? Have you validated there's not police? Then use multiple predictions. Yeah. You can use multiple predictions. I mean, the point is we trust other things implicitly and blindly. And so I think once organizations, including mine, can start to kind of more blindly accept the prediction, I think that's where you'll really see things accelerate.
So I want to really highlight something that Sally said is, you can either take the route of dragging them kicking and screaming, or you can get change agents to help so that it's not so painful to get on that journey. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Steve, a question for you. If you could do it differently because you're further along, what would you change?
What would I do differently? Oh, gosh.
You've just done such a great
job.
He's just been perfect, right?
Perfect. I guess along those lines, the change agents or the adoption, maybe it's she said multiple GPS, maybe leveraging multiple, algorithms or prediction outputs, maybe getting folks into a room, hands-on with the prediction. Because I guess as I think through that question here, we had a group. It was a cross-functional group. We had somebody from controllership and FP&A and the program finance team and the indirect budgets team. And we did a POC, we proved it out, we got the algorithms fine-tuned, and then we pushed it out. So maybe there should have been a little bit more of an adoption party, so to speak, and maybe incorporated a little bit more communication throughout, so they weren't overwhelmed and being told, hey, just use the prediction and what's happening to my job type of thing. But they eventually came around. You replace them through attrition. Everybody's thinking. It's fun.
That's what I love about Steve. He's just going to say what he needs to say, no filter.
Yeah, but I mean, there's always things you can improve. But I think the biggest thing would have been just maybe gotten a little bit more, around the campfire, kumbaya, and got everybody comfortable versus just kind of making it work and then pushing it out is probably something I definitely do different.
Yeah, and for me, I would say, just maybe getting those change agents or SMEs sooner in the process. I think if there's things that, I'm sure there's things that we could have done with some of those small wins or quick wins early on, within those functions, not necessarily like the top-down mandate, to really get that buy-in sooner. That I think that, hindsight's 2020. It would have been great to start sooner, but at least we're getting started.
Okay, last question before we take some questions from the audience. What are you hoping to see in the Oracle EPM roadmap in the next few years that can benefit you and your organization as you go on your AI journey?
You can start.
Okay, okay.
You probably have a list, right?
I've submitted it in all my sessions. Yeah. No, I think a couple of things. I think touching on what I mentioned earlier, around the trust and adoption factor. I think understanding kind of that traceability and explainability aspect is something I'm looking forward to. I did hear a little bit about it this week in some future releases that will be happening. So kind of help understand, okay, here was the prediction, and here's kind of the outputs, or here's what drove it, and giving a little bit more insights into why it gave the prediction it did versus what we might see on the current manual process that occurs. And I think just continuing to refine across, especially if you're in both EPM and ERP, is really converge both of those. Being live on both applications, I think kind of seeing roadmaps come together will be good, and being able to pass the data a little bit more seamlessly, or leverage the data because the databases are different a little bit easier. Because again, as we all learn, on ChatGPT or other LLMs we might be using out there, the more you ingest, the more feedback loop is, the better it's going to be. So for me, especially with the multivariate coming out and trying to ingest other data points from ERP to really help those predictions. And I think it will help with kind of understanding what's going into it more. So that's kind of what I'm looking forward to.
Sally, is there anything that you would like to see in the product that you don't see today?
Really, I'd just like us to start using everything that's already available in the product, and so that's what we're working on. One of the things that I know is, supposed to be coming in summer of 2026, and been asking about it, is really the chat with your data, or chat with your EPM. That's something that our leadership is very interested in. So not necessarily the analysts, but the leaders being able to get in there and just ask those natural language questions for things that they would normally ask an analyst for, that would then take the analyst time to run the reports, format it, validate it, send it over to them, to enable that for, and I'm sure it'll be used throughout the organization, but really the natural language. I think we're all used to using the ChatGPT. Talking with the ChatGPT has been, I don't know if anyone does it, but on my car ride home from work, I'm having a conversation with ChatGPT, and I think that that's where we're headed. So to be able to do that in the finance function would be great.
I like that one. I'll give it a thumbs up.
Got validated by Steve here.
Wow, that's great. Questions from the audience? Any questions for these two? Yes.
Pushed out the predictive modeling to everybody, or is it being used more by like HQ
No, so the goal this year was to push it out to everybody. Right now, we run the models and then we just deliver it kind of automatically, but it goes out to the analyst, the individual contributor, all the way down to the individual contributor level, so they can see what it is that we're seeing and then be able to kind of compare. So right now, they're really using it kind of as a lighthouse or guardrails. So we run the models, we send it out to them, so they have the prediction before they even start their revenue cycle and their buildup with their programs teams or their sales teams. So we pushed it all the way down. So we did a POC, then after the POC, we just did it at the HQ or FP&A level. Then once we got the CFO and the FP&A director and his team comfortable, we then pushed it down to the other divisions and groups. And they kept it at their level, and then this year in our fiscal third quarter, we pushed it down to the lowest level, both on the direct and the indirect side. So on the indirect department side, but then also on the direct side. Because the thing is, we're asking questions. Hey, the prediction is saying you should be doing X million this month, this quarter, this year. Your forecast is saying this. And trying to get insights into what they know that we're not feeding the model. Because the initial models for IPM are just looking at your historical data. With multivariate, you can bring in additional data points. So we're trying to understand what they know that the machine isn't understanding or picking up. But they like having fun. They try and I think sometimes purposely make me mad and see, we were right. Well, what happened? Well, this happened. Well, you didn't tell the machine that. That's why. You withheld data. But lowest level. But I would start at a higher level and then slowly get the executive team, the managers, directors, et cetera, comfortable, and then push it down. Because eventually it needs to get to them, because that's where most of the churn, most of the cost is happening, right? At the lowest individual contributor level. Good question, though.
Any other questions? Yes.
I think you had mentioned that currently you're on some of your entities, if you will, are on Fusion and some of them are on EPM. I guess, why did you decide to go with EPM first over everybody on Fusion? And then any, I guess, recommendations for implementation that you thought, like, oh, that's really tough?
Yeah, well, I think it was serendipitous. Because in 2017, 2018, we had some small commercial acquisitions, government-related commercial acquisitions. And so if you came to 2019, back in San Francisco, I pitched on Fusion. So that's kind of how we ended up with Fusion, is because I had two acquisitions that needed to get off what they were on. Because I don't want to disparage the systems or tools they were on, but they had to get off as something else. We weren't ready to take the behemoth EBS quite yet, so we kind of wanted to dip our toes, or as Natalie was saying, crawl, walk, run. And so we took those two entities to Fusion and have been live since January 2020, and able to scale and grow without adding heads. So that's been good across all functions. But then to your question about EPM, so EPM probably would have gone first if I didn't have those two acquisitions. So that's why I was saying it's kind of serendipitous. There was a triggering event. But because we were already in the planning stages to move from, we were on-prem, HFM, S-based user. So we were already in the planning stages to get to EPM. But just the way I had to lay out the dominoes in terms of costs and resources, that came a year later. Then in 2021, we went live on EPM. For EPM, we did basically all functionality we had on HFM and S-Base, and then we did plus some additional functionality we wanted. And our SI for the EPM project was PwC. And then we've continued to leverage them on various enhancements, whether it's bringing EAC data or your earned value data if you have earned value projects, getting IPM turned on, capital budget and planning as well. Don't know if I completely, did you have 2, 3, or 10 questions in there? But if I missed one, you can have a follow-up unless Sally has that.
Well, Did you say where you were at on your journey?
So we're currently on EBS, we're gonna be going to Fusion, but we're currently trying to decide right now, say like, what module do you do? Do you do the full ERP, do you do an EPM service, like,
Yeah, so with ERP, I'm a big bang guy. I want everything all at once because that's where I get the value. Is it more painful and risky? Yes, but with Fusion, we did everything. We did CRM, supply chain, financials, contracts. I had manufacturing. I had multiple foreign currencies. I had multiple locations. So we had at Go Live, we had 3 teams at 3, multiple sites. So for ERP, I'm always a fan of Big Bang because I get the most value. Natalie would probably kick me and tell me maybe you should.
I'm holding my tongue. I'm holding my tongue.
But ERP, we're typically, Big Bang. EPM, it was more or less Big Bang. We put in a lot of functionality and it turned on a lot of modules. There was one that was a quick second. ARCS was a quick second for us with EPM. I think if you're deciding between Fusion and EPM, I would say that EPM can
Get
be
a little closer to Steve. Let me see what he's going to say.
Oh, this is EPM, so I need that's right. No, but EPM, it's for me, it's more controlled because EPM is more finance and accounting centric. So I have a lot more control over finance and accounting. I have less control over manufacturing and supply chain. There's a lot more, proverbial cats to herd with that kind of rollout. So if you're trying to decide ERP or EPM, EPM is a little bit more self-contained, arguably less risky. You're getting to the cloud then. You can turn on some AI functionality, make the C-suite, happy with that. ERP, it is going to be, harder. And I don't know if you do manufacturing or not, or foreign currencies and everything else that make it more complex. But EPM, if I had a choice, I probably would have done EPM. But I had 2 acquisitions, and we needed to get them off of their existing applications, and so jumped at the opportunity to put them on Fusion.
Yeah, we typically see you can get value out of doing EPM first, much quicker, because the ERPs take a lot longer to implement. So we typically recommend our clients doing EPM first strategy, but obviously there are nuances to that, right? So.
Yeah, I mean, without giving away anything confidential, the EPM timeline and the EPM cost was much smaller than less than the ERP, which is why EPM can be a big, quick win.
I know you guys touched on traceability and just reliability of data. Are you finding that there's an internal audit or external audit RFP shop in cost base of reliability of analytics, how you're
Can you guys repeat her question so that everybody can hear? Because I wasn't even able to hear before you answer. It's okay. There was supposed to be a roving mic.
So the lady was asking, what about, internal audit or SOX or your external auditors? Are you bringing them along? Is there any constraints? Ask for forgiveness and go do it. Otherwise, I find auditors
He's a
hold you
rebel.
back. No, I think for us, we didn't bring them along explicitly. Internal audit is under our controller, so the controller was aware of the project. She also has, the SOX or ICFR folks under her as well. So they are aware of the project. It involved the external auditors, no. But at the end of the day, there's always a human in the loop when it came to, any external reporting or internal reporting up to management. So the key has been, documentation, what we're doing. Was there a change to, none of this changed the revenue recognition process or 606. It didn't really change the control procedures either. The control procedure said I do an Excel file and I download an OAS report and I compare it to this report. Well, now it's saying, hey, I've got this model and I've got the prediction. So, we had to edit it, but the control point was still the same and there's still a human in the loop. But we certainly have had many conversations with the audit team about what we're doing.
Yes.
Are there any workforce planning integrated was asking if you've done any workforce planning integrated into EPM and what kind of impact that's had on reporting and analysis.
So I can speak to that from without the AI component to that. But yes, we have implemented workforce planning as part of Oracle EPM as part of the planning function. I would say that's probably one of our more challenging areas of what we've implemented. I think that the issues that we've faced, and I know this isn't answering exactly your question, but the challenges we face is really identifying and defining the process before the implementation. And so I think that's where, we didn't do a great job of that, and so now we're dealing with how to rectify those things. So we're actually just going back. We've just recently started talking, and we'll be kicking off soon to go back and relook at what should the functional process be, and then try and align the technology to that functional process. I don't know about you guys.
I mean, yes and no. We budget in EPM at, I need 12 software engineers and 6 manufacturing techs, et cetera. So we're doing at the lowest level, workforce planning, but it's not integrated with HR's, people tool. That is, we are evaluating a enterprise-wide workforce planning tool, that would be used by HR and then all the functions for headcount management. And one of the aspects requirements of that is to then be able to bring that data into EPM versus doing what we're doing today, which is the finance analyst is looking at, the headcount needs by job function and then forecast it. And then my rates team, we load rates and then it, layers on top of the labor to then build up the revenue forecast. So we start at the individual workforce planning level, but it's not integrated with the HR tool, and that's something I would like to do in the future.
Right back there.
Hi, my name is Hardik. I represent GE Healthcare. I'm the EPM product leader there. I have 2 questions, one for Sally and one for Steve. So Sally, I completely resonated with the point you just made around functional process and how do you standardize it and then use the systems to configure them. So did you find any challenges in getting those initial SMEs that you also spoke about earlier? And how did you get those initial functional people to come and work together to standardize the process?
Yeah.
And then Steve, a question for you was, revenue forecasting is generally one of the difficult line items or FSLIs to forecast. How was your experience of IPM Insights to do revenue forecasting?
So from the SMEs or focusing on the functional side, I think what we've learned is we've done Oracle planning in phases, and what we learned early on was until you can truly get the dedicated headcount, not someone doing it part-time, that is the only way you're going to be successful, because the finance function, they're overloaded as it is, and you try and put a project this large and this big of a change. We were on like a glorified Excel planning system, essentially. And to be able to go from that to Oracle planning with part-time is just not going to work. And so that was the biggest thing. And that really just took more of a leadership mandate tone at the top, is making sure that we got the commitment and identified resources that they were going to be able to commit 100% of their time to the project.
Yeah, I mean, just real quick on that both for the Fusion and the EPM project, I had dedicated teams as well that were doing it. We offloaded their day jobs so they could strictly focus on this. Oh shoot! Now I'm forgetting your
Revenue being the hardest.
Revenue being the hardest. Revenue hasn't been the hardest at the top level, meaning just if I just run predictions at the revenue level. What's been the hardest is drilling down into your revenue components and getting those predictions accurate. And part of the POC, that we did before pushing it out to the organization is we went back 3 years. So we said, okay, if we went back in time and it was 2021 and we were predicting for 2021 actuals. We ran then the prediction for what the prediction would have known, or had, which was 2018 through, end of 2020 to tell us 21. So we went back all the way several years to kind of validate it first. So getting revenue wasn't because it's at the highest level, at least for me, the revenue's at the highest level. It was then peeling it back down to look at labor, material, and overheads. But then within overheads, I had to then pivot to the indirect budgets and then go, push it down into travel and awards and tuition and everything else that shows up in indirect budgets and IT costs. And so that's been the hardest thing is pushing down the prediction to the lowest level. At a top level, getting revenue right, I don't think that was the difficult part. It was peeling back revenue and getting to the lowest level has taken the most time. But one of the bumps you get with trying to be out front with the new dynamic predictions that you can just do in a form right on the lowest level, that's really been it's going to be a game changer for us once we push that out to the organization, because you're already at the lowest level then. I'd like to think they took some of our feedback, and that's why they rolled it out.
Just have a couple minutes left. I'm going to ask a question to the audience. And using your paddles, I'm going to take a picture so I could send it to Oracle. I am excited to start my Oracle EPM AI journey soon. Okay, I'm going to take a picture, and then next year we're going to see who started and hold you accountable.
Love it.
I think we have time for one more question. Yes.
When you said you had dedicated teams for the implementation. I mean, how many resources are you talking about, and kind of what is the breakdown of skill sets within those teams?
So for EPM, I had 2 internal heads. They're finance by trade that just love technology. They would be probably what we would think of as like your super Excel, gurus that build out slicers and macros and just love living in Excel. They just love technology.
And they were full-time, right, Steve?
Process improvement. They were full-time. And then so those are the only 2 full-time, and then we had an SI with us, and then there was some part-time. For Fusion, it was dedicated team was more like 12. That was just finance, and then a few IT folks, and then there was an SI as well. But I don't think the team has to be large. I would not. The takeaway wouldn't be it's a big team. You just need
Especially for
folks
EPM.
help, communication, training, testing. But I think what's been key in both of those projects is they were, end users at one point in their career.
Yep.
So they really understood what the end user was going to think of what we were developing or what we were going to be doing. In both those cases, they were at the other end of at the user end of it. So I think that would be the key point as well. It's not just full-time, getting some heads dedicated to the team. It's their existing users. So they're going to be somebody that's been with the company. They don't have to be with the company 20 years, but it's going to be somebody that's been with the company and worked in the system, knows enough about the processes. Now I'm adding another thing, and is open to change, because you have to change your processes. It definitely do not recreate on-prem in cloud processes, because your CFO will not be happy with no change in cost structure.
And the same was true for us. It was within the business, had been for a number of years. And two, like when I'm speaking about like one of our businesses that went live recently, 2 dedicated who knew the processes, inside and out, and could be those change agents.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for attending our session. I think we can stay for a few minutes if you have anybody wants to come to the front and ask additional questions. Thank you, Sally. Thank you, Steve. Appreciate you guys.